You think you know what fear is? Imagine a prison where 11,000 people are packed together like sardines, where samurai inmates take justice into their own hands if a guard is killed, where your neighbors are drug dealers, millionaires, gangsters, and even monk pedophiles, and your bed is just a foam pad that costs $100. Today, I'll tell you how Jake ended up in the toughest prison in Thailand, what got him a life sentence, and how he managed to escape that hell after 15 years. This is a true story about surviving in a place where there's no room for mercy, no rules, and no sunlight. Jake grew up in a regular family. His older brother was a ship captain. His father was an engineer. Jake himself dreamed of freedom and adventure, so he left home to see the world. In Bangkok, as often happens, things quickly went off the rails. New friends, random choices, a bit of recklessness, and suddenly, you're not just a tourist anymore. You're part of a failed bank robbery. It didn't start with some big plan to get rich. It was just a chain of small mistakes that, by the time Jake turned 30, became one huge problem. He came to Bangkok for a new life. Back then, he was just an ordinary guy. A family in Europe, a degree, a few years at sea, some language skills, and a bit of money. But nothing worked out in a foreign country. Relationships fell apart, jobs failed, and life kept getting worse. Eventually, desperation pushed him to take a risk. Bangkok in the early 2000s was a mess of heat, smog, motorcycles, and tourists. It was here, in one of the central districts, that Jake planned a bank robbery. Not for the adrenaline, but out of pure hopelessness and the feeling that there was no way out. He was looking for an escape from the endless routine and debts. He did everything by the book, rented an apartment near the bank, studied the guards and security cameras, took notes in a battered notebook. He wanted it to be fast and precise. On a hot Friday morning in August, he went for it. He walked into the bank in a t-shirt, cap, and a black backpack. It was 10 in the morning, not many customers. He got to the counter, swung his arm, and in his hand was a fake gun. He shouted in English, "Nobody move! Open the safe!" The cashier turned pale. The guard froze. It lasted maybe 2 minutes. Bundles of baht and dollars went into his backpack. For a second, Jake thought he'd pulled it off. Nobody chased him. Nobody yelled. The feeling didn't last. Cops were already waiting around the corner. The silent alarm had been triggered, and the police showed up faster than he could imagine. Within a minute, Jake was pinned down in front of the local vendors. His face and gait were caught on camera. The evidence was obvious. At the station, the police didn't beat him, just looked at him like he was an idiot. "Why'd you do it, Farang?" an officer asked. Jake could only shrug. He didn't have an answer. Then came the bureaucracy. Lawyers, translators, endless interrogations. The police quickly found the money and the fake gun. At trial, the judge said, "Life in Kwang prison." Jake heard the sentence almost without emotion. He watched as they put handcuffs on him and took him away. People say something snaps inside you at moments like that. For Jake, nothing snapped. He just felt empty. Later, they explained, life means you die in prison. No parole, no hope. That was it. No going back. The transfer to Kwang was a story in itself. Huge gates, rusty bars, the roar of voices in 10 languages. In the intake room, a line of scared, silent newcomers. A tired guard yelling names and handing out uniforms. Blue shorts, a t-shirt, plastic sandals. "Welcome to Kwang," one of the inmates sneered. Jake was led to his cell, a concrete box where 15 people slept on the floor. No beds, just a single bulb overhead, and the smell of stale laundry and sweat. His possessions, a plastic basin, a blanket, a pillow, a bag with soap and a toothbrush. That's it. The first night was hell. Strange voices, groans, someone snoring, someone talking to themselves. Jake couldn't believe this was now his life. In the morning, the cell doors banged open and thick, humid air rushed in. Inmates filed silently into the yard. Some smoked, some argued, some just stared into space. You couldn't trust anyone, but making enemies was dangerous too. Jake realized he had a new life now, by someone else's rules. His goal, survive, stay sane, and maybe, someday, find a way out. You never forget your first 24 hours in Bangkok. After the trial and a long ride under guard, Jake was led straight to the block. They brought new inmates almost every day, but nobody got used to it. The hallway reeked of food, dirt, cheap laundry powder, and something undefinable, a mix of 1,000 lives. The guard in a dirty uniform barked, "Move." 15 men in the cell, 4 Europeans, 3 from Hong Kong, the rest locals, some from India and Africa. The new guy always gets the worst spot, in the middle, between legs and heads. Corners and wall spaces go to the veterans. Jake tried to find some comfort. He spread his thin mattress on the concrete and rolled up his jacket as a pillow. Everyone slept on the floor. No beds, no real mattresses. If you were lucky, you might get a piece of foam sent in a care package. A dim light hung from the ceiling. Everyone was used to it by now. It came on early in the morning and stayed on until late at night. You don't make noise or fight inside the cell. Fights happen outside. If someone ruins the vibe, they'll be told to sort it out in the yard. The worst thing is to be isolated. Even a small spot on the floor is precious. "Get used to it. There's no personal space here," whispered another foreigner. By midnight, it was unbearably hot. Only the rich inmates could buy an extra fan from the staff for a few hundred baht. Jake had nothing. He just lay there, listening to the sounds from neighboring cells. Sometimes someone put on the TV, but always used headphones so others could sleep. For many, that box was the only way to escape, at least in their minds. At sunrise, everyone had to get up. The cell doors opened, and inmates stepped out into the courtyard. All the blocks gathered here. Some exercised, some cooked breakfast, some went to the prison store. The staff kept things orderly, but most of the rules were unwritten, based on respect. For example, the cell toilet was only for emergencies. Everyone knew you had to keep it decent. The best place to sleep was near the little barred window by the hallway. Jake dreamed of getting there. More air, a view of the yard, and sometimes, if you were lucky, even a little sunlight. The first week was just fear and survival. You learn how to eat, don't make noise, don't stare at someone else's bowl, where to put your stuff, what you can say, and what's better left unsaid. The veterans quickly showed the newcomers who was in charge. No bosses in here, but everyone has boundaries. Jake was surprised at how fast order emerged in the chaos. The food was another shock. Thai prison food is a challenge, to put it mildly. Breakfast was rice and mackerel, usually badly cleaned, headless fish. Lunch was tom yum soup with fish or shrimp, sometimes chicken or pork. Dinner was sweet rice soup with a few vegetables, usually cucumbers. At first, it seemed like it wasn't enough, but your body adapts. 3 meals a day, no snacks, no luxury. people tried to buy extra food from the prison store. You could get almost anything: noodles, chocolate, even t-shirts with your favorite team. Some ran little businesses, selling fried chicken, pastries, or cigarettes one at a time. It was like a market, only inside concrete walls. Sometimes the guards bought things too, but mostly they just took what they wanted. Everyone knew who was in charge. In their free time, everyone found something to do. Some built little houses out of plywood boxes, a room inside the room. If you had 2 or 3, you could even stretch out on top. The shared area became a hive of activity: laundry, studying, odd jobs. But the biggest danger was punishment. If a contraband phone was found, everyone got punished. One time, 8 new Thai inmates were moved in. The mixed cell quickly turned into a powder keg, and everyone had to learn new rules and even new languages. The worst thing was losing your tiny world and being sent to another section. But there were lighter sides too. Little cats roamed wherever they wanted, stealing food from inmates. Nobody got mad. There was the prison market, where you could buy socks, underwear, candy, or just talk over a cup of tea. Some found friends, some found enemies, but everyone had to learn to be part of this world. Within a week, Jake learned, if you want to survive, be invisible. Don't argue. Don't show off your habits. The main thing is to learn to wait and believe that someday, behind these concrete walls, not only the day will end, but your sentence too. Years awaited him, but the fear of the first days was gone. Life in Bangkok means the noise of hundreds of voices behind you, the same concrete walls and rusty bars in front of you. Morning started with a guard yelling, banging on the bars, and the smell of leftover food. Jake quickly realized that prison was split in 2, 7 short hours of daylight in the yard and 16 long hours of cramped darkness at night, packed with 15 people in a few square meters, barely enough room to stretch out. In the cell, everyone had their own rules and their own space, if you were lucky enough to get a spot by the wall or window. The best spots were for the veterans. Newcomers always started in the middle, surrounded by feet and heads, strange socks under your nose, and a constant feeling that you didn't belong. All your life fit in a plywood box and a plastic basin. If you had 2 or 3 boxes, you could build a mini bed or hang a shirt as a curtain, just for a tiny bit of privacy. You had to hide anything valuable. Even soap and a clean t-shirt were currency. And by evening, the cell was filled with other people's smells and fragments of conversations. The food was another ordeal. Thai food inside Bangkok was only for the strong-stomached or the truly desperate. 3 times a day, always the same. Rice, headless mackerel, spicy soup, sweet rice at night. Sometimes a few vegetables, usually sliced cucumber, which nobody liked. For most foreigners, it was a shock, but after a month, your body adjusted. There was no other choice. But there was a whole underground food market inside the prison. Prison stores looked like kiosks with a wide range of stuff. Noodles, chips, even soccer shirts. If you wanted to cook, you could buy a clay bucket and charcoal. The smartest inmates started businesses, frying chicken, baking pastries, selling cigarettes one by one, even setting up a mini-market at the block entrance. Sometimes the guards bought from them, but usually just took things for free. Everyone knew who was boss. The prison was full of gambling. Almost every block had dominoes and card tables. The real attraction was the local casino: dice, roulette, chips with samurai stamps. You could lose everything or win respect and an extra meal. If you cheated, you might get punched or kicked out, so everyone knew the boundaries. In Kwang, everyone was on their own, but you still had to build relationships. In Jake's cell, there were people from India, Israel, Holland, France, South America, and Kazakhstan. It was a strange mix. Some kept to themselves, some joked and told stories from their old lives, some helped with translation or shared news. Some worked for the administration, hoping for a mythical amnesty that almost never happened. These helpers just annoyed everyone else. The most unusual part of prison life was the ladyboys. They lived separately, in special cells or even in the hospital, where things were a bit softer. Some lived with rich husbands. Some worked in their profession. Others just tried to survive. Bangkok had everything. Its own heroes and outcasts, its own jokes, even cats that nobody bothered, and that could get away with anything. The worst thing was group punishment. If anyone found a phone, the whole cell could be scattered around different blocks or new neighbors brought in, turning life into chaos. Sometimes things turned violent. Jake saw angry inmates hunt down a snitch, and it ended in blood. But even in hell, there were bright spots. The education center let inmates draw, learn new skills, even study law by correspondence. For Jake, this was salvation, a way to feel human, not just count down the days. At night, everything was quiet. Jake stared at the bars, thought about the past, remembered the people waiting for him on the outside. Sometimes he managed to write a letter, or just talk to someone who understood what it was like to wake up every day in the same nightmare and still hope that one day it would end. Surviving in Bangkok wasn't just about staying alive physically. It was about not losing yourself inside. After the first years of shock and animal fear, Jake noticed that the hardest part wasn't the daily routine, the heat, or the lack of privacy, but the constant struggle with emptiness inside. Most people broke in the first few months. Some found meaning in religion, some in working for the staff, some turned to sports, and some just slowly lost their minds. Jake, who used to love drawing, started with simple sketches on scraps of paper. In prison, drawing became his only way to be himself, to escape the endless, identical days. Later, the education center noticed him. He could study there, even meet visiting teachers from the outside. It was a chance not just to get an education, but to escape for a couple of hours. There were courses in massage, shoemaking, even legal lectures. Every morning was the same. Roll call, breakfast, searches, assignment to blocks. Then, study, conversations, rare silence when you could actually hear your own thoughts. Over the years, Jake became part of the group who painted walls, made cards, built things out of plywood. He started getting letters, not just from his family, but from strangers who'd read about him in the papers or heard through visitors. The first letters hurt. They reminded him of freedom, of friends, of everything he'd lost. Later, writing became a lifeline, a way to survive, to trade messages, packages, a few short words from a world without barbed wire. One of the strangest and most important moments was meeting Emma, a Canadian. She came to visit after reading about Jake in the newspaper and saw something real in his art. Emma became his support, not just emotionally. She organized an exhibit of his drawings back home, helped him earn money for art supplies and care packages. Their relationship was more like a strong friendship than love, but that connection kept Jake from giving up completely. In prison, outside support means 100 times more than you can imagine. In his block, Jake became a sort of go-between, helping others write letters, translating between English and Thai, collecting stories for an internal newspaper. Sometimes he got to visit the education center, where he was almost free. No one shouting, no one rushing you. There, you could talk to teachers, draw, and sometimes even forget the barbed wire outside. The hardest times were the evenings and nights. That's when all the fears came back. Thoughts about family, childhood, your own mistakes. Some prayed, some listened to music on headphones, some just sat by the bars, looking down the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of the moon. In those moments, despair gave way to hope. One day, this will all be over. Sometimes you even had to laugh at a stupid story from the cell, a ridiculous argument with a neighbor, or at someone almost burning down the block trying to fry fish on a homemade stove. Over the years, Jake tried everything: sports, drawing, helping others, even writing to the Russian embassy and international organizations, hoping to get his case reviewed. It led nowhere, but it was one more way to feel alive. Moments of joy were rare, but bright. Contact visits were allowed once a year for the best-behaved inmates. On those days, family could visit for a few hours in the prison yard, sit at a table, talk face-to-face. No intimacy, but real food from home and a chance to touch. For many, those few hours were worth behaving all year. Some inmates lost their minds or just withdrew. Jake became a support for a couple of people who would have been crushed by the system otherwise, helping with money, listening, teaching them the basics of a language. Such friendships rarely lasted till the end, but here they were like salvation. The most important thing Jake realized was that to survive, you have to find some way to be useful to others. Then time goes faster, and you have at least a small chance that you'll get out not as an empty shell, but as a person who can still feel and care. Jake's last months in Bangkok were the strangest of his life. Everything seemed to slow down. The same faces, the same concrete box, the same conversations. Only inside, everything had changed. There was hope now, and with hope came fear that it might all fall apart. Suddenly, there was news. A new embassy was taking up his case. Diplomats started moving. Letters were written. People persuaded. In Bangkok, rumors like this were common. Nobody believed a white guy would actually get released the normal way. A week before his release, it was obvious. You could no longer buy food in the prison store. Your account was frozen. That was the surest sign you'd be moved soon. Jake started packing. After 15 years, his world was down to a couple of bags with books, art supplies, and a few letters. He had to leave everything else or give it to others who wouldn't be leaving anytime soon. The day of his release was almost physically painful. Morning, guards, paperwork, head counts, searches, more head counts. For the first time in years, nobody shouted, rushed, or scolded him. Everything happened fast and quietly. Jake didn't believe it until the last moment. He thought they'd pull him back, find some missing form, or invent a problem. When they finally took him outside, the consul and lawyer were already waiting. They joked about who'd get to shake his hand first, while Jake just stood there clutching his bag, not knowing what to do, where to go, or how to breathe air that didn't smell like rot and boiled rice. The first days of freedom felt like a dream. He stayed with friends, afraid to sleep with the door open, not used to nobody coming in to count heads at night. In stores, he didn't know what to buy, wanted everything, then realized nothing brought pleasure like it used to. All his habits of being a normal person were gone. The hardest thing was seeing kids. After 15 years, he hadn't seen a child. Now, every cry in the park cut straight to his heart. Ties to the past came through letters and rare phone calls. Things with Emma became calmer. They met a few times, talked about everything, but both knew that the years had separated them more than any walls ever could. Jake tried to start over, got a job, rented a room, struggled to buy new shoes. His toes had spread after years of barefoot living. Psychological adjustment took more than a month, or even a year. Every day was a new battle, with himself, with memories, with the challenge of living without constant fear. Sometimes panic would hit, thinking this was all a dream, and the next corner would be another checkpoint, another count, another cell. But in those moments, Jake remembered he survived not just by luck, but thanks to other people. Those who wrote letters, who drew with him on the walls, who helped him not become a beast. He realized that even in the darkest hole, there's still a place for humanity, for friendship, for support, for the smallest bit of respect. The most important thing prison gave him was the ability to value time. Now, every day mattered, no matter what he did, worked, sat in silence, or just looked outside. He came out of Bangkok a different man, not perfect, but alive, with a new understanding that the value of life isn't in how many days you live, but how you live them. The past was behind him, but the memory remained, a reminder that freedom isn't just open doors, but the ability to be yourself, to not lose your soul, even in the worst conditions. This story isn't about heroism or crime. It's about how a person can survive where no one is supposed to, and not turn into a ghost. Jake lost 15 years, but didn't lose himself. He learned to be useful to others, kept his sanity, and most importantly, found joy again in the little things everyone else takes for granted. Kwang doesn't forgive weakness, but even in the harshest place, there's space for friendship, real conversations, and small victories over yourself. Jake left that prison with one lesson: time is the only resource that really matters. If you like stories about survival, real hardship, and unusual fates, subscribe, share this video, and tell us in the comments. What does freedom mean to you? Could you survive even one day in a place like this? And what habit could you never give up, even in prison?